Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing a beginner PvP class guide. This has been asked about quite a bit on stream about what's beginner friendly PvP classes that people want to try. So I figured I would try and make a guide on that. I did put healers in the do not play category because I just don't play healers. So the fact that I don't play healers, there's no point in me just putting it on the list. So I put that in do not play category because I'm just not a healer person. I did make this in 4 different categories. Super easy, which will be the easiest things to play and what I recommend most for beginners. Easy category, which is be still pretty easy, just not like super easy like the first category. Then the third category will be not easy but not hard. So it'll be about average. That won't be easy, but won't be hard either. Just somewhere like in the middle. And then in the fourth category will be take some skill. I decided to do this as classes, and specs to classes because some specs in some classes take more skill than some of the other ones. So I'm doing this as specs to instead of classes. I'll also be doing this as like more utility or how many buttons the class has or how hard it is to play. Instead, I'm not basing this off of like, oh, Demon Hunter is like the best melee in the game or Rogue is the best melee in the game because and the rest here because of their damage and all that stuff. So that's the reason I'm basing it off on a bunch of other things, which you'll see throughout the video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. First up is going to be Affliction. This one isn't really exactly super easy. It's more kind of like in the between floating between easy and not easy but not hard. I think it's more so in the easy category though. I don't think personal affliction is that difficult. All you really have to do for affliction is pretty much maintain your dots on several targets at a time. I would say the main thing you would have to worry about for affliction is the positioning. Just make sure you're on. You put your portals at right areas and gateways when you need to get out of there, that kind of situation. They do have a decent amount of buttons, but not nowhere near as much as some other specs you'll see in the future. So I don't personally think Affliction is one of the easy ones. It's one of the more specs I do play at the most at the moment. But yeah, I think the only thing you really have to like worry about for Affliction the most is your positioning. So just make sure you watch your positioning as Affliction, and you'll probably enjoy the spec. It's got pretty good self healing with Drain Life. It's got tons of good CC between Fear, Mortal Coil, a Stun, and a bunch of other stuff. So I don't think Affliction is really that hard to get into, and why I'm putting it on easy instead of not easy but not hard. So I'm gonna leave it in that category pretty much for those reasons. Armsware, I'm putting in the super easy category, is pretty easy to pick up. It's got a lot of defenses this expansion compared to the other ones in my opinion. Between Ignore Pain, Dab of the Sword, it's got Victory Rush. It's got Stormbolt. The only thing you really have to worry about with Arms Warrior is that you do have to like use your intervene on like targets, which is really like not a really huge issue if you're trying to save somebody. Um, and just other stuff. It's got one of the best mortal strikes in the game. It's got pretty good damage. Could Blade Storm to avoid CC at certain times. But overall, Arms Warrior is pretty easy to pick up. It's one of the more easy classes to pick up in the game, and why I'm putting Arms in the super easy category. There's just not much you really have to worry about. You just pretty much zug targets down. But like I said, they got one of the best mortal strikes in the game. They got decent CC between Stormbolt, Fear, Shockwave, Intervene to redirect the damage of targets back to you, so that way you can save teammates. Decent defensives. Overall, that's where Arms Warrior is at, and if you're looking for that kind of situation, then Arms Warrior might be for you. Assassin Rogue is, in my opinion, actually one of the more easy specs to play right now. I mean, actually, you could probably put it in the easy category. I mean, There's some situations where it's kind of hard to decide where to put this one. I feel like I'm just gonna leave in the super easy category though. For the most part, Assassin Rogue is pretty easy to play. Right now, the best build in my opinion is the Cleave type of build, and you pretty much just all you really need to do is just keep your dots up. Kind of similar to like Affliction, except it's just more bleed playstyle. Just make sure you keep your Garrote, Rupture, and as much people as possible. They have some of the best well, they don't have the best CC in the game, at least the spec does anyways. But they have some of the best CC in the game as a class as a whole. And also, rogues are one of the best 1v1 classes in the game. It doesn't matter which rogue spec, which I'll go over those in the future once we get to them. They make pretty good 1v1 classes. They like ninja bases. They also have smoke bomb to get a kill on a target easier. So, for example, if you're trying to burst a healer or DPS or even a flag carrier and they're getting close to dying, you drop smoke bomb. Healers can't save them, and they end up dying. And yeah, I will say Assassin is the squishiest out of the two rogue specs. I mean, out of three rogue specs. Sorry, so do keep that in mind. But they out of all three rogue specs, I would say Assassin's the easiest of the of the three rogue specs, and why I'm putting them on super easy. Guardian Druid, in my opinion, is probably one of the easiest tank specs to play in the game. Um, Pretty much for the most part, you really have very few buttons. Like I know Druid has a lot of things like on their bars and you might get overwhelmed, but for the realistically, Guardian Druid doesn't really have much to worry about. You'll toss up like maybe a few cyclones to CC your targets if nobody's focusing you to help CC. They are pretty much one of the best flag carrier class in the game. Uh, Ability wise, most of the time people will end up DPSing themselves because Brambles just redirects damage back at people who are attacking you, and most of the time people just kill themselves pretty much because they'll be DPSing you. And then other than that, they have their DPS buttons are just basically like Thrash and Maul and Mangle, and it's really easy to get into Guardian Druid. It's pretty simple. Alright, up next is Blood Decay, and this one I'm going to be putting in the easy category. I think it's a little bit more harder but than Guardian Druid, but not by much, so that's why I'm putting it in the easy category instead of super easy. For the most part, how Blood Decay works is when the more damage you take, the more Death Strike heals you'll be doing. They have a ton of CC. Some Blood Decays are locking people out of the team fight and dragging like them into the water on certain maps in battlegrounds and stuff, which is always pretty interesting. They'll just double death group and keep chains of ice and blinding sheet them underwater and just completely lock healers out of a team fight. So blood decays are pretty intense in battlegrounds. Some battleground maps like Ashran specifically, they are immortal and literally never die because Ashran gives them a huge healing increase and health increase as well. So they can literally like solo the boss, depending on if healers decide to keep the boss up or not. And they can just tank entire raids and distract them, and that's how sometimes teams win because people are dumb enough to attack the Blood Decay. The only weakness Blood Decay really basically has is also being disarmed, and even then, sometimes that's not even enough. So yeah, but for the most part, Blood Decay is, in my opinion, the second most powerful tank in the game. They also aren't really very difficult to play, in my opinion. So if you're looking for something that almost hardly ever dies, and is very strong, got decent CC, then Blood Decay will be for you. Beast Mastery Hunter is one of the more easy specs to play for Hunter class. It's pretty easy. There's not really much you really have to worry about other than just like barbed shots and make sure you're maintaining the stacks. Everything else is just pretty much easy to pick up. Hunters just other than make sure you have pet macros to make sure your pet is near you because your pet's going to be doing a lot of the damage. So make sure you have that. Other than that, it's just pretty much like I said, maintaining your barb shots and all that stuff. Otherwise, BM Hunter's the easiest of the three Hunter specs, in my opinion, and why I'm putting it in the super easy category. Balanced Droid, in my opinion, is the not easy but not hard category. I feel like some people are going to really debate me on that, but Balanced Druid is my main, and that where I would actually put that. I definitely don't think Balanced Druid is super easy. I would maybe consider putting it in the easy category, but I feel like it deserves in the not easy but not hard category. It's got a lot of buttons, and I'm sure it's confused some people. I've even seen some people tell me that on stream before. So I know everybody's difference in opinion and probably where I'm going to put some of these stuff are is going to be, but I think it's in the not easy, not hard category. It's a lot of fun. Balanced Druid is my main. I love it the most out of any other spec in the game. It's got a lot of buttons. You gotta worry about switching different forms and all that to survive and to get out of there. Use your wild charge to get certain areas. They got a bunch of nice defensives between Renewal, Heart of the Wild, Frenzied Regen, um, stuff like that. Also, I recommend getting Root Beam macros for set focus macros. It'll make your life a lot easier. So set focus macros for Cyclone and Root Beam. So that's the reason why I'm putting all this in the not easy but hard category. It's not like it's got like a super extremely complicated rotation, but I just feel like it's a lot harder compared to some of these other ones in my opinion, and that's the reason why I'm putting this in the not easy but not hard category. I feel like you gotta sometimes work a little bit harder compared to some of the other specs. So that's the only reason why I'm putting this in the not easy but not hard category. But I love Boomkin. It's one of my favorite things to play, and it's one of the more powerful battlegrounds, one of the most powerful battleground specs in the game if that's what you're interested in. So do keep that in mind as well. Brewmaster, I admit I don't really play. I played it like maybe a few times this expansion. I think it's one of the specs that takes some skill in my opinion. And I honestly don't really know much about them, unfortunately, other than like you gotta worry about your stagger and all that kind of thing. So I'm putting in the take some skill category. The very few brewmasters I've seen, they make it look pretty crazy, and the few times I have played it, I definitely think it takes some skill compared to any other tank spec in the game. So that's why I'm putting it in the take some skill category. But unfortunately, I just don't really know much about it. So that's why I'm putting it in the take some skill because I mean I played a little bit of it, but not enough to like it's kind of hard to explain. I feel like it just takes some skill. That's pretty much the best way to put it. Demo lock. I'm not a big fan of demo. I don't think it's super easy. I don't think it's easy, so I think it's also not easy but not hard category. I played a little bit of demo. It's never been particularly something I've been amazing at compared to the other lock specs. I think it takes some more skill than than Destro and Affliction. And of course, that's my opinion. Some people might disagree with me on this too. But I do feel like it's a little bit more complicated than Affliction or Destro to me. Maybe that's just because I struggle with it and I'm not too particularly amazing at it. But I feel like it's got the most CC out of the two lock specs. It's better at 1v1s than Affliction and Destro is too, also in my opinion. So if you're looking at what the lock spec that does better at 1v1s, I would say Demo is better at it than Affliction and Destro. But having said that, I think it's one of the harder specs to play for with the three lock specs, and why I'm putting it in the not easy but not hard category. Destruction, I feel like it's the easiest out of the three rogues, or not with rogue specs, sorry, the three warlock specs, and why I'm putting it in the super easy category. There's not really much to Destro. It's just got keep emulates up, use conflagrates, and chaos bolts, and that's pretty much it. Other than just making sure, of course, you um, position yourself well. Same thing as Affliction. The reason why I'm putting this in a super easy compared to Affliction is that Affliction you have to kind of like maintain dots and everything and all that stuff, so it's a little bit more to it than Destro does. But Destro is pretty easy to pick up and just make sure you watch your positioning, peel for your teammates, same as Affliction. That's pretty much all that you need to worry about for Destro. It's really easy to pick up and a pretty fun spec to play. It's my favorite spec to play for Warlocks, personally. So I would pick it up if you're interested in playing a caster that's pretty simple, does pretty decent damage, got really good CC, and so on. Elemental Shaman I would put in the not easy but not hard category. It's not particularly hard, but I feel like it's not easy enough to put in the easy category or super easy category. All you pretty much need to do is Ellie is make sure you maintain your flame shock on as much people as possible. The only downside is every single time you put your dots on somebody, people either love to dispel it or scattershot, imprison, or paralysis off, and it really annoys me, and why it's I have a lot of problems with Ellen. Other than that, it's pretty much a spec that also takes a lot of time to ramp up, but once you got all that ramp up going, you can do a lot of damage. But it has a lot of buttons, you got a lot of totems you gotta like keep an eye out for, and you got Hex and Lightning Lasso. You got like it's got one of the most overwhelming buttons in the game, and I know a lot of people get overwhelmed by how much buttons they have like on stream. A lot of people ask me what class don't have like a lot of buttons. So if you're looking for something that has a lot of buttons and if that's a range class, it's a little bit more complicated to play. Um, it has knockoffs, so you can knock people off cliffs. You can even do some amazing plays with I forgot what it's called. I think it's called Static Totem, and there's like tomatic projection or whatever, and you can move it close to a cliff and combo it with a knockoff, and just knock people off the cliff that way. I've seen some people do it, and it's pretty fun. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, Elemental will be just for you. Enhancement, I'm putting in the same category as Ellie. It's pretty much just as complicated as Ellie, in my opinion, just minus the fact that it doesn't need as much ramp up time, in my opinion. I'm not really big on Enhancement, I don't really play it that much, but in my opinion, it's one of the more harder specs to play compared to like Arms Warrior and Assassin Rogue, in my opinion. So I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's particularly hard and takes some skill either. So I'm putting it somewhere in the middle. I feel like that's the most deserving spot for Enhancement. It's got decent self healing, but that's the main defensive enhancement. It's not really got other defenses out of that other than like Astral Shift, and I guess you can consider your Earth Elemental a defensive as well because it gives you some extra health. But for the most part, enhancement is kind of rough to play. It's usually well known that way. So if you're interested in that kind of spec, do keep that in mind. And yeah, that's where I'm going to be putting enhancement. It's just in that kind of situation. Not easy, but not hard. Feral Druid is one of the classes that takes some skill. I love Feral Druid. It's one of my favorite things to play, but Feral Druid is one of the harder specs to play in the game. Um, you gotta worry more about getting in and out of team fights. Cyclone is pretty much going to be part of your rotation, so do keep that in mind because you're going to be running the Wild Attunement talent, and that's going to be where some of your damage is going to be coming from. So you're going to be constantly cycloning a lot compared to Boomkin. You're going to be wanting to time your bear form perfectly so you won't die in cat form because right now Feral Druid is pretty squishy and they're usually the kill target a good majority of the time, so do keep that in mind. You're going to be wanting to time your bear form perfectly. If you do want to see a good example of like what a good Feral Druid can do, Snubby has a YouTube channel. He's a Feral Druid main, and he's pretty crazy. And you'll see example like what a really good Feral Druid can do. So yeah, if you're interested in something that's takes a lot of skill but has a really good reward, in my opinion, then Feral Druid is good for you because a difference between a good Feral Druid and a not good Feral Druid is pretty huge. But a good Feral Druid is definitely probably one of the most scary things. So keep that in mind. They are very good at 1v1s and they're pretty good at CC like they are with rogues. And they're really strong in Battleground and Blitz because they can Cyclone Ninja Cap. So I think that's about all I can say for Feral. Up next is Fire Mage. I don't really play Fire as much anymore. I used to play it in BFA. And that was the last time I seriously played it. I haven't played it much at all this expansion, but I don't think they're particularly easy. I actually think I think this for all of the mage specs personally. I don't think mages generally. I don't think mage in general is easy, but not hard, especially right now because right now hunters are pretty much infesting PvP, and hunters counter mage is pretty hard. Mages also have a lot of buttons, so obviously that might be overwhelming for some people, but I don't think they're particularly easy. I don't think they're really that hard either. So that's the reason why I'm putting Fire Mage in the not easy but not hard category. I'm also going to be doing the same for Frost Mage. I actually don't think Mage in general is easy but not hard either. It's a fun spec. I love Frost Mage out of the most of the three mage specs. That's what I play. I don't really enjoy Arcane or Fire that much, but I think they're all in the same category personally. They just have a lot of buttons, a lot you gotta like worry about. Not to mention hunters are extremely hard counter to mage right now, which makes it rough to play mage at the moment. So it's a rough class for a beginner, and why I'm putting it in the not easy but not hard category. Frost DK is in the super easy category. I think Frost Mage is one of the easiest melee classes to play in the game. However, Frost DK is not particularly well known for being good in PvP, in my opinion. A lot of the time, Frost DKs generally get laughed at least from what I've seen. So do keep that in mind if you're gonna play Frost DK. I love Frost DK personally; it's my favorite Death Knight spec, but it's just never been particularly amazing. I think they need a rework. However, saying that, this is, like I said, based off how easy they are to play and obviously how strong they are. But I did want to keep that in mind if you're playing this as a beginner spec. It's easy to pick up. Just be warned, you probably won't do much damage because it's really reliant on burst, and their burst cooldown is 1 minute. Other than that, like I said, Frost DK is pretty easy, really easy to pick up, really easy to pick up. And if you want something that's easy to pick up, then as a melee, then Frost DK will be for you. Fury Warrior is in the same boat as Arms. It's really easy to play. The difference between Arms and Fury is that Fury does have more self-healing, I feel like, than Arms does. Um, and Fury does have a Moral Strike like Arms does, but it is a little bit worse than Arms. In my opinion, Fury is better for solo compared to Arms as well. And that's pretty much the only difference between Arms and Fury. Otherwise, it's just pretty much the exact same thing. It's very easy to pick up. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. It's not really much to say other than that. Fury is pretty easy to pick up, and it's got decent self healing. The defenses are a little bit worse than Arms right now, in my opinion. But other than that, Fury is pretty easy to pick up. Havoc Demon Hunter, really easy to pick up, similar to Frost DK, Arms, and Fury. The only thing with Havoc Demon Hunter is I feel like some people might disagree with me on this, but I personally, after playing a lot of Demon Hunter this expansion, I think Demon Hunter is pretty squishy. They die generally pretty quick, even after I'm playing a bunch of different specs and I face Demon Hunters. They generally die pretty quickly. Some people did say that they're really tanky, but I really disagree. I think they're pretty easy to kill for the most part. It might be different in arenas because I don't do a whole lot of those, but regardless, Demon Hunter is pretty easy to play. They got barely any buttons at all. Their defenses are a little bit weak, in my opinion. They have Blur on a 1 minute cooldown, which has a chance to dodge. They got Darkness, which is RNG about saving you sometimes. Netherwalk, which is okay, but it's kind of weak defensive, in my opinion. You're immune to damage, but still, it's not particularly amazing, and it's a 3 minute cooldown as well. The most powerful thing for Demon Hunter is, I would say, is Glimpse, which if you can time it perfectly, it does take some skill to do it perfectly. But if you time it right, you can completely negate CC. Like you will be immune to stuns, a fear, mortal coil. But that's if you time it perfectly right. So it is one of the most powerful things in the game. But having said that, that's pretty much Havoc Demon Hunter. It's got really strong mobility, one of the strongest mobility in the game. Glimpse is one of the most powerful abilities in the game. Their defenses are a little bit meh, and they're a little bit squishy, so do keep that in mind. But if that all sounds good to you, then Havoc Demon Hunter will be for you. And Havoc Demon Hunter is one of my most favorite things to play in the game. Oh, also the main thing that will pretty much be nice if you play this spec is if you hate stealth classes like rogues, you can see them and get them out of stealth. And also, they got double jump where you can get to places other specs and classes, whatever, can't go. So, if that sounds good to you, play Havoc Demon Hunter. You won't regret it. Marksman Hunter, I debated on putting this in super easy category, but I'm just going to put this on easy category simply due to the fact that their rotation is really super easy. That's why I was going to put them in super easy category. However, you have to worry about like hiding and all that stuff sometimes, so I'm gonna put this in the easy category just because of that. Other than that, they're the strongest, most annoying thing to be in the game. To in battlegrounds and world PvP. For arenas, it's a different story, but for battlegrounds and world PvP, they are one of the strongest things at the moment. You can snipe from million yards away, and you won't even be focused. So they're pretty easy to play. Like I said, rotation wise, the only reason why I'm putting them in this category is that you do have to worry about like kiting and that stuff eventually and all that stuff. So that's why I'm not putting them in the super easy category, comparing it to like Frost DK or Fury and Arms and Beast Mastery. So I'll put them in the easy category, but to be honest, I still think they kind of deserve super easy. But I'll give them the pass and putting them in the easy category for this one. Outlaw Rogue, I'm gonna put this in the not easy but not hard category. I think an argument can be made for them to be put in the easy category. I think they're the second easiest thing to play after Assassin Rogue. The reason why I'm putting this in this category is because for Outlaw, while I don't really play it as much, they do have to worry about the roll of the bones buff and all that stuff. They're not particularly like easy, but they're also like, not really hard, which is the reason why I'm putting this in that category. So they just have to worry more about the roll of the bones buff and all that stuff. So that's why I'm putting them in the not easy but not hard category. Prop Paladin, I have no idea where to exactly put this if I'm being honest. I think they're one of the worst tanks at the moment. I'm not exactly sure where to put this. I'm probably just going to put this in the D tier. I know it's not really any of the categories, but I'm just not really exactly sure where to put them because for Prop Paladins, a lot of their kit can't even be used in some of the stuff that they can use in battlegrounds. Like for flags, they can't use bubble, they can't use spell warning, they can't use blessing protection, they can use land hands. I'm pretty sure they can't use queens. And then for like solo shuffle, they don't get put with a healer, so it'll be like a prop paladin 2 DPS and games end really quickly. So they're not really worth playing in my opinion, and why I'm putting them in the D category. Prot Warrior, I'm not exactly sure where to put this either. I think I'm just going to put this in the not easy but not hard category. I don't think they're particularly hard to play, but I don't think they're really easy either. They don't really have much going for them in my opinion. I don't really play a whole lot of Prot, so I'm just going to put them in that category for that reason. So that's where I'm going to put them. Ret Paladin, a lot of people tell me Ret Paladin is really easy, etc. And you would think I would put them in that, but I've been having played a lot of Ret Paladin, having watched Levelden play it. I don't know what he would think either, but I think I'm putting them in the not easy but not hard category for a few reasons. Ret Paladin is a support type spec. Their rotation isn't necessarily hard. It is actually pretty easy, but the thing with Ret Paladin is, like I said, you're support, and you need a lot of like support type macros to save your teammates because that's what the whole spec is about. So you're going to be needing a lot of macros for Blessing of Sacrifice. They're free somebody from CC. They're Word of Glory or whatever. I mean, you could pretty much probably click their icon and ever do that too. That's what I do. But if you want to like do like high rated stuff, you'll need a lot of different macros and all that. And I watch Levelden sometimes, and he has like all these macros and stuff, and it's just I feel like it overwhelms me. I don't play that kind of style, but that's the reason why I'm putting it not easy, not hard, because I feel like it doesn't take the same amount of skill as Feral and Brewmaster do, but I don't think it's easy compared to like these other specs either. So I think Ret Paladin deserves not easy but not hard category, just pretty much for those reasons. Shadow Priest is going for the same situation as Ret Paladin. It's basically a support type spec in my opinion. It's got a lot of buttons. It's got like life swap where you gotta like, in case your teammates are going down, you can life swap and save your teammates that way. Leap of Faith. It's got a ton of utility between Silence, Siphene, Stuns, Fear. It's got a lot of buttons compared to some of the other specs in the game. So pretty much like similar to like the whole support thing like Ret Paladin does. I'm putting it in the not easy but not hard category. So That's the reason why I'm putting Shadow Priest. But if you're interested in like a spec that can just like mind control people off cliffs for fun, because that's one of my most favorite things to do. Also in Ashran, there's a buff that makes you fly in the air. And what I used to love, I even made a montage of this like a long time ago, where I go up in the air, mind control someone that's in a huge raid, whether they're alliance or horde, and then mind control them, and then their whole team ends up killing them. It was so fun. I love doing that. So if that interests you, if what I said interests you and like the ton of utility that Shadow Priest has between silence, stun, a fear, mind control, life swap to save yourself or your teammates, dispersion, which is a defensive that can heal you while you're stunned, even, which is very strong, then Shadow Priest will be for you. Sub Rogue, as much as it pains me to say it, does take some skill. It's the most out of the 3 rogue specs. It takes the most skill, in my opinion, because one screw up can completely mess you up. It's not a very forgiving spec to play, so do keep that in mind. So if you want to play something that takes skill but is extremely rewarding, similar to Feral, then Sub Rogue will be for you. Unlike the other rogue specs, Sub Rogue is probably the most tanky out of the 3 rogue specs. Like maybe Outlaw is probably more tanky. I don't know. Outlaw and Sub are pretty tanky compared to Assassin Rogue. So it's kind of hard to say, but Sub Rogue is pretty tanky. Also, unlike Assassin and Outlaw, Sub Rogue has double vanish that will change next expansion, of course. Where other rogue specs will get double vanish as well. But yeah, that's pretty much Sub Rogue for you. It is not very forgiving. If you mess up, you will be in trouble. It takes a lot of skill compared to the other compared to the other 2 rogue specs. So do keep that in mind. And if that all sounds good to you, then Sub Rogue will be for you. Survival Hunter, out of the 3 hunter specs, it takes the most skill. I don't think it deserves the same category as Feral and Sub Rogue though. So I'm putting that in the not easy but not hard category. I feel like it takes, like I said, some skill compared to BM and Marksman. As you can play both range and melee at will. If you're interested in something that could do both melee and ranged, it's the only spec in the game that can kind of do that, besides maybe Red Paladin. But yeah, Survival is a spec that can do either ranged or melee. So if you want to get into the fight, then you can go that way. If you want to play at ranged, so you don't get blown up by everything in the middle or something, you can do that. They have the easiest way to land traps out of the 2 hunter specs also, between this having their pet out and you can stun and trap. Actually, Beastmaster can do the same thing. And I guess Marksman can probably do it as well, so maybe that doesn't apply anymore. But yeah. Survival does take the most skill of the 3 hunter specs, but it's got the most fun, rewarding playstyle in my opinion. If you're interested in a class that can do both melee and ranged, Survival will be for you. That's pretty much all there is to it. But it is the hardest out of the 3 hunter specs. Do keep that in mind. Unholy, I don't think is as easy as Frost, but it's still pretty easy to pick up. There's not really much difference between Frost and Unholy. The only difference is that you gotta maintain your diseases on as much people as possible, because that's gonna be a lot of your damage, and also you're gonna be having to maintain um, your your stacks, necrotic stacks or whatever they're called. I forgot what they're called. I don't play Unholy too terribly much. I played it a few times, but not really a lot. It's my least favorite Death Knight spec. But yeah, that's pretty much the only difference between Frost and Unholy. It's pretty easy to pick up. If you want to play like a Necromancer type of class or whatever, that it's kind of similar to that, then you can play Unholy. And that's pretty much about the difference between Frost and Unholy. Is you got to maintain some stacks, keep your diseases up. Oh, and make sure you maintain your pet as well, because your pet does a lot. Is a lot of your kit as well compared to Frost. So do keep that in mind. Um, Vengeance Demon Hunter, I don't think is particularly super easy, but I don't think it's deserves the not easy but not hard category. Putting that in the easy category, it's got decent self healing, similar to Blood DK. It's not as OP as Blood DK is, but in my opinion, Vengeance Demon is probably the 3rd strongest tank spec in the game. So if you're interested in a class that or spec that has really strong mobility and able to do things other tanks can't by like jumping on, for example, in Warsong, you can jump up the graveyard, and no other class can do that. They're gonna have to go the long way. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, where it's got really powerful mobility, can do things other classes can't, has good self healing, then Vengeance Demon Hunter will be for you. Windwalker Monk, I think, is in the easy category. I don't think it's really deserving in the not easy but not hard category. Windwalker is pretty easy to pick up on. It's not super easy. There's a few things you gotta worry about for Windwalker. I would worry about your putting your Transcendence, kind of similar to Warlock, setting up your portals in certain areas. Windwalker is a spec that you're gonna have to go in and out of. Like for example, it's just the way they're designed, because they can die pretty easy. So you're gonna be going into team fights, getting a kill on a target, and then you might have to dip out because you might get blown up after that. So that's pretty much the playstyle of Windwalker. Their defenses are not too terribly bad. They got Diffuse Magic, they got Transcendence when they need to get out, Touch of Karma, Fortifying Brew, and then Dampening Harm, or whatever it's called. So they got quite a few defensives, and their mobility is one of the highest in the game. So if that all sounds good to you, then you can play Windwalker. Also, do keep in mind, there's a talent that gives them 100% crits, so you want to time your cooldowns with that, as well as that'll be your big damage go as well. So make sure you time that right as well. Anyways, with all of that, that's the reason why I'm putting in the easy category instead of the super easy category. And also, I don't think it's too difficultly hard to maintain all that stuff, so that's why I'm not putting it in the third category as well. Arcane Mage is my least favorite of the three mage specs. However, I am putting this on the not easy but not hard category. Similar to Frost Mage and Fire Mage, I just don't think the meta right now is particularly forgiving for mages because of all the hunters right now. And they do have a lot of buttons for Mage specifically, like I said, similar to Fire Mage and Frost. So that's the reason why I'm putting this in not easy but not hard category. It's pretty much for all those reasons, similar to Frost and Fire. So that's where I'm putting them all at. Anyways, that's it for my beginner-friendly guide, guys. Let me know what you guys think of this. Some of you guys probably might disagree with me because some people might think some of my choices are bad. I don't know. But this is, in my opinion, what I think after playing most. I play most of the specs. There's a few like I don't play. Like for example, I don't play Arcane, I don't play Unholy, and I don't play on Outlaw. But I play mostly almost everything else. I did bench like maybe my Shadow Priest and my Elite this season, but I still would stand. Even if I did play it, I would stand by my opinion on these. But other than that, hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys later.